Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Friday, February 19th, 2021. I'm Andrew Hansen alongside Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach. And he's feeling good today, I think, because the power's back on. He's rested up from a day off yesterday. Coach, am I right? Are you feeling much better today?
I'm telling you, man, you really appreciate things when you don't have them for a while and then you get them back, like the power and water and things like that. I'm telling you, it's just I feel great today. I was going nuts this last 3 or 4 days just trying to squeeze everything in when we did have power, and it was mayhem, but everything's back to normal. Had a good night's sleep, got all my preparations ready, got a shower, even shaved up a little bit. Man, I feel like a new person after being in, Bangladesh, it felt like for 3 or 4 days.
Excellent. Well, we have a new 9-game slate to get after. The beauty of DFS, a whole new set of challenges to get after. And so that's what we're going to do here. We'll go game by game, get you ready for Draftkings, FanDuel, and Yahoo, and see if we can navigate the world of the NBA today, which is very challenging. So, uh,
Yes.
out of these 9 games, we have 6 teams involved in a back to back. We only have 2 totals over 230. So, as we talked about here before we got on the podcast, some bunched totals.
Yeah.
No really high ones, no really low ones. So it is going to be a battle. The first one to evaluate is Golden State against Orlando. 7 o'clock tip. Golden State favored by 4. Total of 224. This is a front end of a back to back for Golden State. And with the injury news, we have Draymond questionable after that late scratch in the last one. And then uh, Fournier is probable and Ennis questionable. Take this one away for us.
Yeah, it's a good start to a slate, like you said, that, we can't eliminate any games that are so low totals. We want to avoid them, and we can't pile on one of those Brooklyn 245 games either. So I love the fact that we've got 9 full games, pretty much an even slate where you can load up on or stack somewhere or pass somewhere and be somewhat contrarian. So I absolutely love this. Before we even get started, this is the perfect slate, I think, for an edge for us here at Coach Talk, the way we build our lineups by hand. So this first game, like you said, Golden State on the first night of a back-to-back. They're in Florida for this event, so they're on the road. They could not be much further away other than Miami from their home base. So it is a road trip. The question always is, is Kerr going to limit any minutes for anybody? Because he has done that very much so in past games where they've had back-to-backs. He hasn't really sat people, but he caps their minutes a little bit. They don't announce it. They don't say anything, but you can just follow it. And there's generally he'll shorten their minutes on the front end or on the back end. So, it's something to keep an eye on and just be aware of. They are both decent defensively. Golden State is all the way up to 5th, which is really impressive considering all the guys they've had out. Orlando's 18th, but getting a little bit better defensively. They certainly missed some of their key defensive guys that are hurt, but they've been hanging in there, making a little bit of a push after losing quite a few games here in the last month. From a pace standpoint, you've got Golden State, the second fastest team in the league as regarding possessions. Orlando's 20th. They're always a little bit slower. They're going to run a lot through Vuk, a lot of ISOs, for him to try to get him the ball at the block. Really the key here, Andrew, for me is Draymond Green going to play? Everybody that got stung by his late, scratch the other day are going to be a little bit hesitant. The fact that it's a 7 o'clock game could save the ship for all of us. So we should know. I mean, like last time, we should know beforehand, because that really changes the whole look of this game regarding defending Orlando and offensively who it's going to run through, because he's led them in assists multiple games this season. He's basically their point guard, of some sort. He doesn't bring it up that much, but once they get in their set offense, he's the one that directs it, which has really helped Curry, to be honest with you. He's getting a lot of shots coming off screens. And I'll tell you, he comes off screens. He and that's what makes the Splash Brothers so great. He and Clay, I don't remember too many guys in the history of the game other than maybe a Ray Allen or, I mean, there's a handful of guys, Reggie Miller, that could come off screens, use the screen the right way, which most people don't, catch and shoot. So, I want to see that news before I really go after this game. Right now, Fournier is probable. That also has a big effect because he is a ball dominant shooter, and with him in there, that lessens the need for me to want to roster Vukovic. Other than that, this game, I know it's a pace-up game for Orlando, but I want the news here. I'm not crazy about this game. I think Curry is definitely playable. But, do you want to start right off by spending all that money right off the schneid? I actually like Curry even more with Green playing because I think it allows him, again, to move without the ball, get more shots up. So, I'm definitely considering Steph here. I think this could be a decent matchup for him. And on the Orlando side, if Green is out, instead of going to Curry, I may pivot to Fournier because even though Green is a lot shorter than Vuk, he creates havoc, fronting the ball, deflecting the ball, helping out on the help side if somebody else like Birch or somebody's guarding him. So really this game is dependent on the news, but it could be important because I may step away with it with either Curry or Vukovic. What do you have?
Well, I would lean more towards Vucevic here. If Draymond is in, you could play him, but I agree. If Draymond's out, he becomes that much more attractive because we know that they're still down Looney and Wiseman. Those guys might get back on the court during this road trip, but they're out tonight. And so
Right.
Vucevic should be able to dominate. So I like him a little bit more than Steph. I also like Michael Carter Williams on FanDuel. He's only 4,500. And he's an inconsistent player, but that's a nice price tag for a starting point guard. On the Golden State side, man, what an effect Draymond's absence had, not only on that slate, but that team. You had
No
guys
doubt.
step up like Bazemore with basically a career game, 48 fantasy points.
How does that happen?
He couldn't miss on threes. He was so active all over the court, and it makes you wonder, why isn't he more effective like that all the time? He's got such length and decent stroke, so
Good
versatile,
defender too.
good defender. So that could give him some confidence, and maybe he'll get a few more minutes going forward. Still a very good price. So you gotta think about him, especially if Draymond's out. And then the quote unquote bigs are in play as a one-off. If Draymond is out, you could go to Juan Toscano Anderson or Pascal. They're both decent prices here. Pascal a little bit cheaper.
And you call them bigs, barely. They're more like mediums.
Yeah, right. Mediums standing in for the bigs.
Exactly.
All right, game 2. The other 7 o'clock tip is Denver in Cleveland. 226 total. Denver favored by 8.5. Big news still with Denver. We've got Millsap, Dozier, and Harris out. Will Barton questionable, and JaMychal Green probable. On the Cleveland side, we have Prince out. So with Denver, you look at them and you say, all right, well, good matchup here. Cleveland is 24th defensively. They are down some guys, so we could get some extra value. Jokic is just absolutely dominant right now, very expensive. So I probably won't go there. Murray has really picked it up. He was excellent against Washington, 2 strong games in a row. He's now finally getting priced back up, 8,000 and 7,500. He's still playable against this, rather poor Cleveland backcourt. It might feel a little bit expensive because his price has been lower, but if you compare it to his prices and his production back in the bubble, it feels like a little bit of a steal for a guy with 50-point upside. So he's playable for me. Michael Porter Jr.'s playable. He's still cheap, but more of a GPP option because sometimes he just hangs out in the corner. Murray and Jokic do their thing in the middle, and he doesn't get much action. JaMychal Green, if he starts again, he's only 4,200 on FanDuel. That's a nice value price for a guy who can get you a double-double. And then with Morris and Campazzo, they are in play for me if Harris is out. If Barton is out again, Morris is only 4,100 on FanDuel, and Campazzo is only 4,000 on DraftKings. You could look there. Over on the Cleveland side, I actually like several of these prices. Garland is only 5,400, and Murray's not known for his defense. And did you know that Garland on the season is at 45, 40, and 90? Really shooting it well, has the ball in his hands a lot. Hasn't been smashing lately, but he's still getting a lot of shots, has the ball in his hands a lot. So I like that option. Cedi Osman is a great value play for me on this slate in the 4K range on both sites, coming off a big double-double against Golden State, got 35 minutes. And with Prince out, he should have a very similar run and opportunity here. So I like him. And Jared Allen, I'm surprised he's not more expensive now that he's the guy there. 6,800 DraftKings, 7,400 on FanDuel. I think both of those are playable. So I don't usually target Cleveland, but I may come out of here with a couple Cavaliers tonight.
Wow, that is a stunner. I see your points, and I don't think the sites have adjusted to Allen being, the dominant center now for that team and going to get most of those minutes. I also agree with you with Cedi. I mean, the guy is so underpriced for somebody that when he gets mid-30s minutes, he almost always makes value. So very interesting. Now, this game scares me, though. The main reason being they're 25th and 27th in pace. So when you're talking about two teams that want to get in a half-court set, and I know there's going to be limited possessions, that always scares me, especially paying way up for somebody. I have some similar takes. I'm done trying to scuffle with those backup guards for Denver. That's so frustrating with Campazzo and Morris, and just trying to figure out, is Hampton going to play a little in this? I can't, my heart can't take any more of that Denver fiasco. And that's for Joe Stanton out there. He's always touting all these nuggets, and, I want to get him in the lineup. What I will do, though, is I do like a nugget tonight, and I like the fact, I know this sounds stupid, I like the fact that Jamal Murray's price went up, because I think if it would have stayed the same, he'd have been super popular. I think people are going to see that and say, wait a minute, I paid 68, 5 days ago. I have to pay 8,000 for Murray. And I think that they'll look elsewhere. I love Jamal Murray in this matchup. I always have targeted, as you know, and had success with guards, specifically point guards that can score against the Cavs. And I think that that's a big plus. He's my favorite play on this side by far for Denver. Porter's a little pricey for, again, a great GPP play, but just a little too risky for cash. As you said, he's a break the slate kind of guy, though. So, I wouldn't fault you for taking a shot there. Not going to pay up the big bucks for the Joker here in this slow of a pace game. But I've said that multiple times, and the guy, throws 80 on the board. So certainly not going to argue that point. On the Cleveland side, Cedi has to be considered under the fact that he's so inexpensive. And if he gets those mid-30s minutes, you almost can't, pass up the value, because there's not a boatload of value really on this slate. But after that, I think I'm good. I get the Jared Allen take, but I'm just not quite ready to use my center spot for him. I think McGee's getting a little burn as a backup now again. And so I'm not really interested in anybody else on that side of the ball. If I need the value, I will go to Cedi, but not my favorite game on the slate.
Okay. Yeah, there is a value center coming up. So Allen probably not in play for me on FanDuel. So Osman much more the target for me. All right, Game 3. We've got Chicago in Philly, 7:30 tip. This is the first ESPN game tonight in the doubleheader. 229 total. Philly favored by 8. And the news here, we've got Shake Milton doubtful and Ben Simmons probable to get back out there. What do you have here?
Well, as normal, the Friday, national TV game's going to have a little bit over ownership. I mean, it just always happens that way. So that scares me a little bit. Chicago's on the first night of a back-to-back. Their horses generally play, but their secondary guys, when they're on a back-to-back, it's the first night. Did I say that? Yeah.
Correct.
So they have. He has a tendency, I think, to, instead of getting a guy 32, he may get him 27, just in lieu of the fact they have a game the next night. But those 5-6 minutes mean everything for those guys like Patrick Williams and all the people that are on the fence. So that concerns me a little bit. I expect Simmons to play, and I've organized this game with him in. The question is, how many minutes is he going to play? Is he going to play full tilt? It is an island game for Philly, so that helps. And, I'm not one that enjoys paying up for Simmons because I don't like the one-dimensional piece of his game, he can't shoot. And so, it's hard to go there, but it is a great matchup for him. And, they are a little shorthanded without Milton probably, and as far as the backcourt. So he could be considered here. I'm not sure I'm going to use the pay up, but Chicago's 21st defensively, and they don't defend the backcourt well. So that is an issue. Philly, on the other hand, being 6th defensively is definitely a concern. I've been riding Zach LaVine, man, and that guy, I'm telling you, no one's played better ball than him in the entire NBA in the last month. And I'll stand by that. The guy is just on fire. But Philly has some bodies, including Simmons, including Thibault, and some of these guys that are going to dog the dirt out of him. So, I think that could be a tough matchup for LaVine, and his price now is up there with the biggest boys. So, not really wanting to go there. Now, Chicago, on the other hand, has Carter back. He's not a great defensive center. If you're going to pay up in this game and you want to, have a real strong play, I mean, how can you argue with Embiid? I mean, he's been dominating everybody. Chicago's defense is not that good, especially in the interior. They don't have guys like Porter available that create some havoc defensively. So, the pay up guy for me in this game, and the center, if I go with a pay up, I will go with Embiid. If I go with the value guy that you mentioned that's coming up, that's going to shift everything around. So Embiid certainly is in high consideration for me here. I think he could be the highest scorer on the entire slate if this game stays close. And, the pace is 4th and 5th, Andrew. So we have 2 of the top 5 pace teams. I think you need some exposure here. The 229.5 is bulked in, 3rd highest, but it's all close. But I do think you need some exposure here. If I don't go Embiid, I would look, at Simmons or Harris. And on the Chicago side, I'm not going to go LaVine, like I said, because I respect those exterior defenders for Philly enough to give him trouble. But, you can look at a few other guys from Chicago and consider them, especially if you're going to pay up. I don't want to have more than 2 guys from this game because I think it will be overowned. But, it could be that I walk away with Embiid and that's it. So we'll see.
Yeah, so for Chicago with me, the only guy I would consider is LaVine. He's been on an absolute heater. And one thing I love about him is that he's had 8 straight games with at least 21 field goal attempts.
Yeah.
He just always gets the opportunity and he usually delivers. I agree that, tough defensive matchup. So I might just fade him tonight because of that. On the Philly side, if Ben Simmons plays, and that's what I'm projecting also, then I'm likely to pass on Philly. Embiid could absolutely smash. I'm just, at that price tag, I'm just hoping he doesn't get 65 fantasy points, and we can overcome that. Tobias Harris is very tempting because he's had 2 monster games in a row, But
Yeah,
remember, 2 games ago, Embiid didn't play. Last game, Simmons didn't play.
exactly.
So with both of them back,
His usage goes down quite a bit when
yep,
those two are on the floor. So great point.
yep. And then same thing with Seth Curry. He was dominant after that injury scare with
Do you
Ben
know what
Simmons
he's
out.
shooting right now? 90, 50, 50. How sick is that?
That family knows how to stroke it.
Good
They
Lord.
they are phenomenal. So yeah, likely a pass for me with Philly if Ben Simmons is out there. All right, Atlanta and Boston, the other 7:30 game in Boston. This is a rematch from Wednesday when Atlanta won 122 to 114. And remember, these teams are going to play next Wednesday. So this is sort of like a 3-game series. This is game 2. Tonight, Boston is favored by 4, 225.5 total. We have Rondo still out for Atlanta. On the Boston side, Tice looks like he's going to be back in. Jaylen Brown now questionable. So that's a big piece of news for Boston. If he's out, Tatum obviously gets a little bit of a bump, but he is expensive. So I don't know if I'll go there.
What's the deal with Boston? Not to interrupt, but I know you're a Celtics insider. I mean, they just don't look right.
They're a little bit off. And, the thing that surprises me is 24th in pace and 14th in defensive efficiency and only 17th offensively. I
Doesn't
think
make sense.
the two big problems are that Kemba's been hurt and he's been inconsistent.
Okay.
He has not been his former self. He's getting there. And that's the number one domino. Number two, Gordon Hayward's gone. And I think that's a bigger absence than most people realize.
True.
They went from being extremely deep with him coming off the bench to now they're a little bit thin. Their bench is young. They don't have a lot of firepower, and of course Marcus Smart is injured right now.
Yeah.
So those are the three big issues,
Yeah.
and it is a concern for Celtics Nation. So I probably won't pay up for Tatum, even though he is in a good spot. We'll see how it plays out. Maybe if we get some more value today. Kemba, he's going to be back in the mix, mid 6K range, a very good price for him against Trae Young defense. So you could go there. On the Atlanta side, I'm only going to look at Trae Young or Capella tonight. Trae Young was terrific against them without Kemba out there, and it's a good matchup for him tonight. He had 40 points against them on Wednesday, and Capella had a nice double-double, and he's a reasonable price tag on both sites. So I would say most likely a one-off for me with Capella, maybe on DraftKings where he's only 7,200, or Kemba potentially in the mid 6K range.
Yeah, this is a tough game for me. I'll tell you, I agree with everything you said. My feeling is Marcus Smart is probably the most underrated player in the NBA. People don't realize how much he makes a team go, from his defensive prowess to his hustle. He sees the floor, he hits the big three. I think he is wildly underestimated by people. And I think that's the big part of their downfall personally. But anyway, as you said, the pace is not great in this game. We need the Jaylen Brown news. That's important. I'm not going to pay up though for any big dogs here, Trae or Tatum. I just don't like the feel of this game. Watching the game flow, the last time they played, and even I had Capella the last game. He came through for me. He was like 6.5x. But it was one of those biting your teeth kind, because what I noticed in that game is they both went small. They were playing Grant Williams and Ogilvy at center, or Tatum, I guess. I don't know if you want to call him that, but they were small, and they played Capella off the floor. He sat a good chunk of time, and then he's such a bad foul shooter, they put him out in the last couple minutes of the game. So I really a little south on Capella right now. The guy that's really been DFS consistent, but I never, ever, every time I play him, it's like the kiss of death, is John Collins. So I always steer from him, but he's been very consistent, and this matchup is probably the best for him if you want to go there. He is expensive, though. Other than that, though, the Atlanta side, I don't trust the flow of it. Trae's just so expensive. A few of the ancillary guys are okay, but on a 9-game slate where you can really be selective, I think that I'm just not interested there. The one guy's price that's staying decent, but he hasn't completely smashed it yet, is Kemba. And you keep waiting for that game, and he just seems to skid by 3, 4, maybe 5x at times, but barely. So is that big game coming, or does he not even have that left? I don't know, but on a slate like this, on a cash lineup, I think this game is going to be the pass game for me, believe it or not.
All right, well, let's shift to the 8 o'clock games then. We've got 3 of those, starting with Detroit in Memphis. Low total here of 220.5. Memphis favored by 4.5 on BetUS.com.pa, our presenting sponsor. And we have the front end of a back-to-back for Memphis. We've got Desmond Bane back in the lineup, and then questionable tags for Melton and Brooks.
And
So,
Dumboyo. Yeah.
gotcha.
All three of them.
So any interest in this one?
It's a tough game to figure as well. I mean, you've got poor defense, 20th and 17th, but not the greatest pace, sort of in the middle of the road. Detroit's 26th, Memphis 13th. So they will, probably average on both sides a little bit. I would like to know if Brooks, Melton, and Dumbuya are out, because those 3 guys, 2 for Memphis, 1 for Detroit, does affect the rotation a little bit. Joe Val's been terrific, but I think he finds his Spider-Man versus Spider-Man deal, in Plumlee. I mean, they're both going to be banging each other inside, and they've both been effective offensively, and I've used both of them. But I see more of a cancel-out scenario there, and possibly some foul trouble for one or both. So that isn't going to lean me towards playing either one of those centers, and they're both now pretty decently expensive. The question is Sadiq Bey. I mean, he's been a key guy for this team now. It seems like they're building around him a lot, and he and Grant are getting all of the usage since all these trades and moves have been made, and I think they're both in play. Not both of them. I would play one or the other with Bey or Grant, depending on what you can afford. But I'd like to have exposure from that side with one of those two. On the Memphis side, I'm not going to go with Ja, because DeLon Wright, his defense is pretty ball hawking, and their rotation now defensively seems better at the guard spot, even though he's been so explosive at times. Even though they're close, this is one of the lower over-unders as well. So the question is, Brooks is pretty high usage. If he sits, I'm not as concerned about Melton, but if he sits, that's got to go somewhere. So the big question will be, is this going to be a value game where you can get a slow-mo, for example, that's going to go 7x, which he can. I mean, nobody talks about him, but look at his numbers at the end of every slate. He's 5, 6x like it's nobody's business, and he does it so quietly, just like he moves slow. He is under the radar, but he's a dangerous guy, and I've seen him at least twice the last week on the optimal lineup. So if Brooks sits, it really brings Kyle Anderson into play. And the other guy that it would bring into play is Grayson Allen at a cheap price, because he's going to get a lot of shots up if Brooks is down. So I want to see that info. Really want to go with one of the 2 Detroit guys, and I'll follow it back up with one of the Grizz, depending on Brooks' availability.
Yeah, I think if those guys are out, then Allen and Anderson are the 2 guys to look at. I'm just very concerned about playing anybody from Memphis. They really limit their minutes on the front end of a back-to-back as much as any team. So I'm likely to pass Memphis. On the Detroit side, Bey and Grant would be the 2 to consider for me. I avoided Bey on the last slate, thankfully, because he got a little bit chalky. Didn't get many shots. It was the Grant show. He was phenomenal. But Bey is in that price range, mid 5K on both sites, where you could play him as a one-off and hope for a bounce back, hope for more shots. So that would be probably the most likely one-off I would get from this game.
And I think his ownership will go down quite a bit for the people he stung last time out.
Absolutely. All right, the next 8 o'clock game, we have Oklahoma City in Milwaukee. This is a rematch from Sunday when Oklahoma City upset the Bucks
How? That's all I can
114 to
say.
109, despite a monstrous triple-double from Giannis. Really impressive victory. Tonight, Milwaukee favored by 10.5 at home. And this is one of the big totals here, 231.5.
Yeah.
We do have Milwaukee on the back-to-back after that loss to Toronto, so their losing streak continues. You got to figure they'll get it done here, right? The challenge, though, is a back-to-back. Their guys played big minutes. They were in there late against Toronto last night. So Giannis is in play with Drew Holiday out again, obviously expensive. So I'm not sure if I'll get there. Middleton, once again, the buy low GPP option, a really nice price on both sites for his talent. And now he doesn't have to deal with Toronto's defense. So he could be a guy to look at. And then on OKC, we've got Shea and Maladon back in the lineup. Their lineup has changed every game as much as anybody in the NBA. But I think we'll settle back into the regulars, so to speak, with Shea, Maladon, and Dort, Baisley, and Horford. I like Maladon's price on DraftKings. He's only 4,700. I think that's worth a look. And then Horford, you just can't ignore him. He's been so solid lately, mid 6K range. It really sets up an interesting decision for the centers tonight. If you go in the mid tier, you've got Jared Allen, Capella, Plumlee, Joval, Horford. So that's one of the unique aspects of this slate. And Horford is as much in play for me out of that group as anyone. The way he's involved in this offense. So Maladon, Horford, Middleton, Giannis, those are the guys I would consider on this slate.
Yeah, this is an interesting game, and I say it, this is probably what the 40th show in a row I've said. It looks like OKC could get blown out, and then they win.
Right.
So, Milwaukee, what do you have the spread? 10 or 11?
10.5.
10.5, yeah. That's the only double-digit spread on the whole slate. So, we have to at least mention that it is possible that it could be a blowout. I refuse to believe it anymore, though. I mean, it's just game after game after game. OKC hangs in there. So, this is not a game that I'm going to focus on. First of all, I agree with what you said. We know Coach Bud does not like to overplay his players. I don't think he's, with all the effort they gave last game and big minutes at the end, I'm just, I could see him shaving 5, 6, 7, even 8 minutes off some of these guys. And that eliminates them immediately. So I'm not going to certainly go up for the monster price with Giannis. I think Chris Middleton gets the Dortcher chamber, as they're now calling it, with Dort's defense. He will probably guard Middleton, which, crosses Middleton off for me. I totally respect that guy's defensive harassment. And they need to get shirts out, the Dortcher chamber with him. See the one where he was with LeBron in his face with his hand, and
I did
basically I don't know what he was doing, but it would have made me miss. So, Milwaukee just does not interest me in this game whatsoever, because there's the multiple things, the possibility of blowout, the extra minutes, the defense. So it's just way too risky for me on that side. Oklahoma City, I will say, without Drew Holiday, their perimeter defense is rough. And Shea could be the guy to really take advantage of that. I don't know if it's going to be Forbes or, I'm not sure who they'll put on Shea, but I don't think they have a great matchup. It would be Holiday normally, and then I would say no. Shea's expensive, but I really think he's the guy here. I mean, he came back. He's had just one game back, I think, from his sitting out. So, he should be in the flow and ready to go. And, these teams play at a great pace, 9th and 6th. So when you have two top 10 teams in pace, you hate to, just completely fade a game. It's usually good to have exposure, if not one of your key guys. So I think the fact that it's an island game for Oklahoma City. Shea's their main go-to guy. I don't think Milwaukee has the best defense. I haven't played him in a while, but I'm gonna go with SGA in this game as one of my foundation guys, my highlighted guys that I put into my lineup. And then after that, you've got a big mix. When Baisley, Roby, and Horford are playing, usually it seems like one of the three is sitting, and then they become a lot more playable. But a lot of those rebounds and everything will get sliced up between those three. But I'll tell you, I'm a big Baisley fan. I know I've been tooting his horn a long time, and his price is a little high. But that kid is real. I mean, he's just coming into his own. He can hit the three, finish at the rim like an Oubre or some of the big finishers. So he's the guy that I always, want to put a circle around. But unfortunately, Mr. Antetokounmpo is going to be floating around the paint most of the time. So that will eliminate that idea. So I wouldn't mind having a little more exposure here. So I'm going to keep digging in on this game. But right now, Shea is going to take his ball and we're leaving.
All right. Interesting. Yeah. That'll be an interesting decision. You make good points on Shea. I still think I lean Maladon a little bit more because with Shea in the 8K range.
He's one of the guys that signed up for your agency. I know you've got Herder, Maladon. You represent those guys. You're an attorney, so I know you've got these guys on the side. I know it.
Well, you buy low on these cheaper guys, the 5K range guys, because they're going to shoot up. They're like stocks you invest in when they're cheap.
There you go.
And so I feel like Maladon's a little more likely to get a 6x return than Shea at that price tag. But that'll be an interesting spot here on this slate, that backcourt for sure.
Yeah.
All right, the other 8 o'clock game, we've got Phoenix against New Orleans. The other 2:30 game here, just barely 230.5. Phoenix favored by 3.5 on the road. They're on the front end of a back-to-back. They're going to play against Memphis tomorrow. And the news here is that Steven Adams is doubtful for the Pelicans.
Yeah.
Break this one down for us, please.
Well, let's discuss Steven Adams being out. And is this the value center that you were talking about?
Sure is.
And this is where I'm looking on DraftKings where I can put Embiid in there and Mr. Hernangomez. And that's, the same guy I circled. I mean, with Adams out in this matchup, the value, unless more opens up through the afternoon, you have to seriously consider him. He's playing good ball too. He's taking advantage of his minutes. Really, they're not getting much Jackson Hayes in there. The only thing that hurts is sometimes they will play smaller and let Zion basically play center. But I think he gets enough burn here with that cost, the salary cost, that he becomes possibly the best value chalk on the whole slate. So I'm with you on that one for sure. Defensively, Phoenix is 7th, so I respect that. I'm probably not going to pay up for the big, Zion, Brandon Ingram studs. Lonzo Ball deserves a little bit of a look, but again, I don't want to run into Chris Paul defense either. And then 28th are the Pelicans, so defensively. So that makes you look at Phoenix, but we've said this over and over. I bet you Phoenix is the team we've rostered the guys from the least of the whole league. It seems like we always get to them, their pace is slow. They're second slowest in the league now. And we've said that all along. They keep getting slower and slower. And the Pelicans are 23rd. So, it's hard to get excited to roster a Phoenix guy when their main three are pretty expensive. They very seldom blow anything up. And it's just, we get to the same thing. We don't want to spend up for Paul Booker or Ayton. And I feel the same today like we have the last month. I just think this game stays slow, scores down a bit. Wouldn't mind just getting Hernangomez as a monster value and sort of moving on. I think that's probably where I'm at.
Yeah, Hernangomez is locked in for me on both sites. Love the value. Like you said, he needs to be out there with Ayton on the other side. So that's my focus with the Pelicans. On the Phoenix side, you do get excited about this matchup. And you look at the fact, one thing that jumped out at me here more than anything on this slate was I checked the game logs for Phoenix against the Pelicans because they've played twice already this year. And Booker has averaged under 30 fantasy points in this matchup. And I thought to myself, what in the world is going on here? This terrible defense. We target guards against them. And then I dug a little deeper. Both games they played this year were blowouts. One team won each in a blowout. And so we just haven't had full minutes for these guys in a close game. And the first game was early in the season when Booker was still getting used to Chris Paul. He didn't get many shots. So Booker is the one guy I would consider here because of that bad defense. He's a decent price. And if it stays close, I think it's going to be a more reasonable game for him for his opportunities in production. So I like him in a GPP potentially, but nobody else for Phoenix with everybody playing, but Hernan Gomez for sure.
I like that you're on Booker. I don't think you've rostered him this year, and that gets my interest up. Because I love Booker. It's just he hasn't been in the best spots. Maybe this is it.
We'll see. Yeah, hopefully. All right. The 9:00 game tonight is Toronto against Minnesota. 226 total. Toronto favored by 2.5. And this actually is a game that I'm looking at as a potential stack game, more so than even the 230 totals. I think this total is a little bit low. We've got Toronto 11th in pace, Minnesota 5th.
Okay.
Toronto great offensively, they're 9th. Minnesota poor defensively, we know that they're 22nd. So a lot of good elements there to a potential high-scoring game. The only downside is, well, I guess there's two of them. It is a back-to-back for Toronto. They can weather that storm as well as anyone, though. On the Minnesota side, we've got D'Angelo Russell out, so a little bit less scoring punch. And then we have Lowry doubtful for Toronto. So that's the big question mark. If he's out, well, if he plays, he's really cheap. He's only 6,700 on DraftKings in a great matchup. But if he sits, then we could go back to a similar build last night from the FanDuel hybrid lineup, the cash for me with Van Vliet, Powell, and Siakam. I mean, those three just dominated the usage against Milwaukee. It was like they were running a three-man weave, just setting each other up for three-pointers. And I mean, they're terrific offensively. So those three guys are where I start my focus. Siakam is really expensive on FanDuel at 8,700. So I don't think I would go there. He's more reasonable on DraftKings in the 7K range. But Van Vliet and Powell are both in play, especially Powell. He's only 5,800 on FanDuel as a shooting guard. He was dominant yesterday. So I like that option. Bembry, if he starts again, he's a value play you could consider in a potentially high-scoring game. Didn't do much yesterday offensively, but low 3K range. He could easily hit 20 fantasy points and help you get multiple guys in this game. On the Minnesota side, Rubio, man, he finally looked like himself last time out with 20 points
and threes.
And he had 20 points and 13 assists against Indiana, really taking advantage of that starting role. So he's playable for me, again, especially on FanDuel where he's only 5,300. Yeah. You could pair him up with a big cat who's 9,300. That would be the GPP option to fade Hernan Gomez. I don't know if I can do it on FanDuel. I mean, we'll see if Adams is, if there's still a question mark. That'll be the turning point. This game is an hour later than the Pelicans game. So you will have.
And you're referring to the other Hernan Gomez, so it doesn't confuse me because there's a Hernan Gomez on this team.
Not Juancho. Not considering him tonight. Just Billy. Hernan Gomez goes by Billy now. It's pretty confusing.
I did not know that.
Used to be Willie. Now he's going by Billy.
Interesting.
So Cat
is teasing enough to scratch him right there.
Yeah, right. Cat more in play for me on DraftKings, but I like this game. It's probably my favorite game to get 3 or 4 players from.
Nice. I mean, I can see it. I mean, there's no question. The defense is Toronto is 12th now. I mean, I mention it every day because they keep moving up every day, so they're getting better. But they not having Lowry as the head of that defense. He always leads the league in charges. He's just such an irritant. That hurts them. I seriously doubt he'll play. So, they do lose a lot with, the lineup, but they have Anunoby back, who's a great defender, and he was out for a while, and they still moved up defensively. So I respect Toronto's defense now. I think they're more together. One thing I will say, too, is Nurse isn't afraid to play his guys. We've mentioned that before, but that also includes on back-to-backs. He's not a guy to sit people. So even though Van Vliet played hard and did well yesterday, I think you got to consider him here. I mean, I really do. I think he's in play. He's their main go-to guy. He's going to get the big shots. He doesn't miss foul shots. He does all the things, to garner DFS points. Norman Powell's, extremely underpriced. I mean, they have him priced for if Lowry was playing and he was going to be the third guard. But when Lowry or Van Vliet are out, he always seems to step up, and his usage shoots through the roof. And I don't remember, and I knock on wood, I don't want to jinx him here because I want to play him. I don't remember the last time he didn't make value when either Lowry or Van Vliet were out. So at his price, I think he's a super value guy that should get a full, all you can eat amount of minutes with Lowry being out. So he's definitely in play for me, and I don't respect the Minnesota defense whatsoever. I mean, it's just not an interesting defense for interior or perimeter. The thing that backs your stack of this game is they are 11th and 6th in pace. So we do have three different teams that have top two teams are in the top 11 in pace, which is unusual. So this is one of those three, and I think that's a big reason for the consideration. On the Minnesota side, I'm terrified to step into the Rubio trap. I know he's had 2 games in a row. One, he hit 3 threes, which was amazing. And the other one, he was just blowing it out and playing terrific. But I really don't trust him. They like to play McLaughlin a decent amount as the backup point. And, the guards from Toronto and their team defense, it can be a little tough. And Rubio isn't going to get those little mid-range floaters with, 7'8" reach span of Boucher in there in the paint. And I'm going to steer clear of that. I think Rubio is going to garner some ownership, and I think that's a little bit of a small trap there. But Cat, I can't do it over Embiid and Hernangomez value. I'm pretty locked in there. But I get it. I mean, he looks good. He's getting decent minutes. But I don't think he's 100% right, though. I mean, if you watched him a little, he looks a little thinner than normal.
Yeah,
he doesn't look quite as strong as he used to be. And so I think he's at that maybe 80%, 85% range, which for that price, you want to get the 100% Cat. So that's why I'm going to steer there. So I'm not going to have a ton of exposure here. I've been playing Edwards almost every slate now because he's deciding that he's going to, he reminds me of when they drafted Wiggins and Wiggins was doing all the scoring initially. Edwards is very similar style player. Sometimes he's into it, sometimes he's not. But when he is, he can explode and dunk and do amazing things, just exactly like Wiggins did. So he's always in play at a fair price too, and maybe the counter on the other side that I'm doing with Powell. But I wouldn't mind taking Van Vliet and Powell, to be honest with you, but I don't know if I'll be able to get Van Vliet's price in there. But I think you need, 2-guy exposure to this game is very smart, I think.
All right, last game of the night. It's the only 10 o'clock tip. It's the second game on ESPN. We have Utah in LA to play the Clippers, a rematch from earlier this week that Utah won easily. All the big guys were out for the Clippers, and now they're questionable again. Kawhi, Paul George, Batum, Kennard, and we still have Conley questionable on the Utah side. Utah favored by 4 tonight, 224.5 total. Will you have any spots left in your rosters for this one?
I absolutely hate sitting there watching that last game with no coverage and just rooting for turnovers and missed shots. But I don't like this game, man. I know it's only a 4 spread, and it's 224.5. I just don't see how you, now maybe later in the day when we get the news, things will work out. But right now, you mentioned the 5 guys that are questionable are 5 of the top 11 guys when you combine the 2 teams together. How are you supposed to anticipate, what's going to happen right now when literally half of the key guys in the game are questionable? So I'm passing right now, but I'm going to watch the news because, easily Kawhi could be ruled in or something could happen there. I thought Kawhi was going to play last game, but if that happens, then I'm interested because I think this will be a good game, a close game. They are 21st and 28th in pace. Certainly not a stackable game, but based on how it pans out with who's sitting, specifically on the Clippers side, I may have a little bit of interest there and at least get one piece of exposure. But if it stays as is, I know there's value that opens up with all these Clippers out. I don't feel comfortable with it. Utah is playing beyond anybody's human belief here. 20-1 in their last 21 games. Doesn't seem possible, but it'll be interesting. I mean, Mitchell didn't get voted in as an all-star, and he's playing as good as anybody since the bubble. Maybe that gives him a little extra motivation in this one, but he is expensive. So that's sort of it for me on this game.
Yeah, I'm in the same spot. I'm passing it at this point in the day. I could see some value opening up, but even if Kawhi or Paul George is out again, the prices have inched up a little bit for the Clippers. So I'm just not anticipating any great value there. Utah, you've got a bunch of guys who are solid. They're all playable. The guys that have stepped up here, Mitchell and Ingles and Clarkson, even Royce O'Neal. I do want to mention Rudy Gobert, though. I was a little bit surprised in that last game against the Clippers. He had 23 and 20, against Ibaka. And the thing about Rudy Gobert is you can't ever tell how many shots he's going to get. In that game against Philly a couple games back with Embiid out, he only got 3 shots in the whole game. And then he got 12 against the Clippers, and he always shoots a high percentage because they're usually lobs and dunks. But, I just hate the fact that with a guy like that who's that big, you just can't really count on the offense. You count on the rebounds and the blocks, but
how many shots do you think he's taken outside the paint this year?
Probably like
I don't know the
answer.
Yeah,
but maybe a little like
many.
Maybe a baseline shot that's like 8 or 9 feet,
or the buzzer was coming up and he had to shoot.
he's like Zion. He does. I mean, Zion will take a 3 occasionally, but he's one of those guys that almost never shoots outside of the paint, and Gobert's the same way. So yeah, he's in that mix again of centers, mid-tier centers, but really more of a GPP option, especially more on DraftKings. He's only 7,300, but he's always a cash game option for me instead of GPP because he's so
bust guy, man.
Yeah, he's usually not booming on offense. He's so solid with everything else.
Games recently though where he has actually, so that's why I always consider him. But I get chicken at the last minute because, like you said, what if he pulls one of those 3 shot attempt games?
Right. Yeah, he's usually right around 40 to 45 fantasy points. That's why he's solid for cash. And then it's just a real bonus if he does get more involved offensively. But yeah, I agree. Mostly a pass game here at this stage in the day. Coach, that wraps up our 9-game slate. Any final thoughts?
No, I think it's a great slate. We're so excited at Coach Talk. Just real briefly here, we're still within our time. We want to try to keep it shorter with the big 9-game slate, but just great things. We're growing here. We're really we're going to be launching a Facebook page soon as well. We're getting some international membership. It's so much fun with Canada, France, and Australia members in our group. It's a blast. And our staff has been so busy. I appreciate them so much. I push them so hard because we have so much to get done. But just a quick thanks. I'm obviously Andrew as a big leader of what we're doing, and Shane as our other pro, and then Joe Stanton, Tyler Pitzer, Brett Trimble, and Dawson Sarvati. Those guys also all stepping up, getting it done, creating all this website info, all of our technology, just a tremendous group. Can't appreciate them anymore. And we have some great things coming. Andrew's going to be putting out prop picks, and he's had an incredible record at that. and he'll have some of those in Discord. If you join us, give us a chance. We got 3 days for $10. You can't beat it. DFSCoachTalk.com is our website, or you can find us at DFS Coach Talk on Twitter. And also, if you're watching this on YouTube, please take a second, hit the thumbs up, the subscribe, and then hit the little alert so you know when our podcast posts. You do those things, we really, really appreciate it. We've got free content 7 days a week in front of the paywall, and we appreciate the subscribe. So that is it, my friend.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Really thankful for the team we have here, and having a lot of fun in Discord. So do give us a try. If you join through our website, dfscoachtalk.com, then what we'll do is we'll just send you an email and then get you into our Discord that way. And we give out our lineups about 20 to 30 minutes before lock. Tonight we'll have 2 FanDuel cash lineups, a GPP lineup, the coach's clipboard for DraftKings, and of course the full Yahoo lineup as well. So that'll do it for tonight. On behalf of the coach, I am Andrew Hansen, and we will see you tomorrow as we look to crush it in DFS.